Hi guys, welcome to a new video. In today's video I'm gonna be showing you how I made this gooseberry jam and also how I canned this in Weck jars. So a Weck jar is an alternative for a mason jar and it actually has all reusable parts. I will be going into more detail in the actual video, but I already just wanted to show you the end result. This is what it's looking like. A beautiful jam. Now I did make a very small batch because it was the first time that I actually canned anything in my life. I had never canned anything before. But so yeah, this is what it's looking like. As you can see, I'm trying to open it. The jar is sealed, so the canning process was successful. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I made this. The first thing I did for this recipe was actually go ahead and clean up my berries a little bit because they had some stems that I didn't want in my jam. So I just went through all the berries, picked off the little stems and put them in a container. Now, as I mentioned before, I am going to be canning this jam into Weck jars. Weck jars are the European alternative to mason jars because mason jars here are very expensive. We're talking, for me, if I want to order them, 5 to 8 euros per jar, whereas Weck jars are around 1 to 2 euros per jar. So it's way cheaper and they are reusable. So in the long run, it's also cheaper. Now a Weck jar consists of 4 parts basically. You have the jar itself, then you have the rubber ring, a glass lid, and then you have the clips that will hold the lid in place while you're canning. So basically, if you compare it to a normal mason jar, the clips are comparable to the ring of a mason jar. So you take it off after canning, and then if you want to store it in the fridge, your jam after it's opened, you can use the clips to basically close it. So the recipe I'm using today is out of the Ball Book of Preserving. If you are interested, I used the berry jam recipe on page 21 of the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. If you want to make this recipe, you can go ahead and look for the recipe there. Now keep in mind I only had 1.5 cups of fruit, so you can adjust the recipe accordingly. I didn't have quite enough fruits for my jam, so I decided to come out here to see if there's any, well, for starters, gooseberries that are ready to be harvested, but I think I picked the whole plant. So then we're just going to pick some raspberries. That's the advantage of having your own garden. You can just come out and grab some more fruit if you don't have enough. There's some kind of insect on there. I'll leave it. Here we go. There's some more. Now the recipe stated that the recipe stated that it's good to use some underripe fruits because apparently those contain more pectin, natural pectin, and so it will help your jam to gel up a little bit more. Let's see, over there I see some more, and then I'm going to grab some until I have enough, at least a half a cup, and then we can go ahead and make our jam. Right, I think this will fill up my half cup, and then I'll come out when it's daylight to harvest the rest of this. So like I said, I made sure I had about 1.5 cups of fruits, and then I just adjusted the recipe to make sure that it was appropriate for my amount of fruit. So I added the sugar, I stirred it, and then I started just to cook it, basically just following the recipe. It's a very simple recipe, And of course, right now, while I'm recording this voiceover, we already know that how the jam turned out, and it was actually a pretty big success. So I'm happy to say that it was successful. It's quite a nice jam. I'm happy I did add the raspberries on top of the gooseberries because they are quite sour. So I definitely recommend adding some strawberries, raspberries, blueberries. I added everything I had in the fridge. So yeah, definitely recommend doing that. At this point, I'm just letting this jam simmer on medium-high heat until the consistency starts to thicken, basically, and until it starts to become more like a jam, what I wanted. As you can see at this point, it's still very liquid, so it's definitely not ready yet. It did end up taking quite a bit longer than I expected. I thought that for the small amount that I made, it would have maybe been a little faster, but it definitely wasn't. So keep in mind, if you want to make this, it's gonna take a long time. You have to test the consistency. It's what I'm doing here. And then once you're happy with the consistency, you can take it off the heat and then you can continue. So at this point in the cooking process, I was pretty happy with the consistency. So I decided to go ahead and take my jars out of the boiling water. This is a thing with Weck jars here in Europe. It is recommended that you actually sterilize your jars, your lids, and your rubber bands. I took the rubber bands out of the water a little sooner than the jars. But so yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. Is that you should definitely sterilize your jars. But that's just a European guideline for canning any foods in any type of jar, so you can do with that what you want. I'm just following the guidelines that I'm finding. But so yeah, that's what I'm doing here, taking it out of the boiling water because I'm getting ready to fill up my jars. Now here you can see I have filled up the jars, added the rings and the lids. Now it's important when you add these that you have them centered very well. So the ring and the top lid need to be centered on the jar because otherwise your seal won't take. So I made sure to double check and then I put my jams, my containers into the water. Now I noticed I was not holding it good. But yeah, I ended up just putting it in the water, canning it for the recommended amount of time in the canning book. I just followed the recipe as if I would be canning mason jars, and that seemed to work out pretty well for me. So yeah, I just followed the recommendation of the cookbook. At this point, my jars were ready to be taken out of the water, and then it's recommended to let them cool completely before you take off the clips, or if you would be canning with a mason jar, it would be before you take off the ring. Now it was pretty late already, so I decided to leave it overnight. It is now the next morning, and this is what my two jars of jam are looking like. Now, as you can see here, this shows how hard our water is. I just cleaned this jar off a little bit. This is all gasification from our water. So, doesn't matter, it's just on the outside. You can just, if I wipe it, it goes away. But now is the question, did our seal take or did it not take? So I'm gonna try to open this. Let me see if I can. No, I'm gonna do it with two hands. 1 second. Okay, I took off the clips and now is the moment of truth. From what I understand, if you can lift the jar by the lid, the seal is good, and if you cannot, then the seal is not good. Oh yes. I'm only holding the ring and the glass at this and the top glass at this point, so this means that our seal is good. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye guys!